Our coverage of Computex 2025 from Taipei, Taiwan is brought to you by Trix, G-Skill, Cooler Master, Gigabyte, and Thermaltake. Hey guys, I'm at Phanteks. Maybe you can tell because it says Phanteks right there. Phanteks makes cases, they make power supplies, they make water cooling stuff. They have some new budget cases that are actually still budget cases. I know a lot of people are like, budget cases are going to go away and they're going to be $100 or more now. They have a couple cases that are less than 100, like $60, $70 that are actually really nice. So let's start there with that case, actually this case right here. This is the Phanteks XT M3, and this case is going to cost $60, $59.99 if you have the version that doesn't come with fans, or it's going to have a version that ships with 3 fans with RGB for $69.99, so $60 or $70 without fans or with fans. It's a Micro-ATX case, so that does mean the size is a little bit smaller. It's a dual chamber case, which means they fit the power supply actually right here, and they've also fit it vertically, so that fits it sort of in a unique way that leaves a lot of extra room in the case otherwise. Then you've got a cable that feeds back there to your AC power. Here's a look at the interior. It's pretty straightforward because right now there's not a system in it, but that's good because it lets us see that the motherboard has a generous cutout for a CPU backplate, but even more importantly, all these cutouts, which means it's compatible with the reverse connector motherboard. So if you want to make that build that's super clean and hides all the cables, you can do that. I'm not opposed to those builds. I like having the ability to do that, and the motherboard manufacturers are now coming around to sort of somewhat standardize that, so we have some agreement between ASUS, MSI, and Gigabyte so that you can get a motherboard that has that back-to-front feature. The only downside I'd say to them right now is they are a little bit pricier than your typical motherboards, but you know, you can still build a normal build in this case. You can just have your cables visible, like that's okay. I don't think anyone should be embarrassed about being able to see your cables, right? That's true. Right, guys? See, everyone agrees. Everyone agrees with me. The other budget case is this one right here. This is the Eclipse G370A, which is a successor to the G400. Main difference between these two, because it's a standard ATX case, is that we're focusing on 120mm fan support for this one, whereas the G400 also has support for 140s. Because they were just worrying about 120mm fans, they didn't have to worry about 140s. They were able to keep the costs on this case down as well. This is going to be a $60 case. Yes, $60, and that includes the fans. Voila, I pulled off the magnetic dust filter on the top so you can see the 360mm radiator or fan mount here at the top for 360 AIOs. This can often be a tricky place to put an AIO with fans and a radiator attached because it's close proximity to the motherboard. However, as you can see, there's a pretty wide spacing right here. They've positioned it as far to the left from this perspective as you can so that you still have clearance for motherboards that might have larger VRM heat sinks or even higher memory modules. So not only do you have that spacing out there, but also they made sure that you had about 60mm of clearance vertically so that you can have, say, a 25mm wide fan plus a radiator that's 25 to 30mm, still fit them in there and have clearance for your motherboard. Although this is a budget case, you're still getting like a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C connector there on the front, just a single USB. But you also get a nice tempered glass side panel window here so you can get a look at your finished build inside. And then they've gone with a single piece design for the front mesh here, so it will pop off as a single unit. I'm going to try to do that. See, I shouldn't do these things on the fly. There we go. So as you can see, that pops off in a single piece. 320mm fan mounts right there. And then that's also going to provide you with a bit of dust filtration for the intakes as well. It's really my one hand. My one-handed skills are not as good as I would expect them to be. So a couple nice new cases from Phanteks. These should be available in Q3, so look for them to come out in the next few months. And I really like that they're actually still keeping the prices, like $60, $70-ish. If you guys didn't watch my most recent how to build a PC tutorial, I chose the Phanteks XT Pro case because it is one of those consummate cases that has that balance between the build quality, the aesthetics, as well as the price, and I'm glad that Phanteks is doing more of those. Over here we have a demo that I'm just going to show you guys real quick because this is the NextLink software, which can also connect to like a NextLink hub. This is for RGB control throughout your system. NextLink software can also control stuff like fan speeds, monitor temperatures, all of those cool things that you might expect from that type of software. As you can see in this demo, they have a couple AIOs being controlled as well as all these fans out here. NextLink is getting an upgrade though, so it can handle the cool stuff that you have going on in these new cases. This is the Evolv X2 Matrix from Phanteks, and this has a Matrix LED display along the bottom, which is actually a mesh metallic with also some fabric built in there. You can actually see it a lot better on the white version of the case that they have that's directly behind me right now, but hopefully we're showing you some B-roll of that right now. But as you can see, the mesh fabric with the LEDs lets the LED light shine through, and there's a bunch of different animations that you can do here, like this little crabby guy that's walking back and forth. You can have it display useful information about your system, like your load on your CPU and GPU. You can have it display what time it is. There's lots of different customization. You can even, of course, go in there and like type in Paul's Hardware, and now you have a customized Paul's Hardware logo on your case. This is a bit more of a premium offering from Phanteks in terms of their cases. So it's going to be a $199 MSRP, 200 bucks basically, but that gives you a lot of extra little aesthetic features like the RGB panel strip along the top. Cool little touches like the fact that the 120 millimeter fans that they have down here at the bottom for the intake are actually kind of recessed, so they sit down in a little channel, which just gives them a cool sort of subtle, stealthy look. You can see I/O down here at the bottom with a couple USB Type A's and a Type C Gen 2. And with the Evolv series, they have lots of glass, and this has glass wraparound on 3 sides, but Phanteks has made sure that you still get plenty of airflow intake at the bottom because this still has that sort of raised panel at the bottom that keeps it up off the desk so that you can have plenty of air intake down there. Here is the white version of the Evolv X2 Matrix, just another look at a different build. This one they have put the Paul's Hardware demo on it, so can you guys keep that there for the whole show?
Yes.
Make sure anyone else who comes and looks at these cases, they'll be like, wow, this is the Paul's Hardware version of the Evolv X2 Matrix. But available in black and white. I really like the look of the white one here, as well as the build that they've put together here. They're not even doing like custom liquid cooling or anything. They have a Phanteks AIO, nice all white components, and everything else I said about the black case applies to that one. If the Evolv X2 Matrix, which with its 900 LED matrix display is a little bit too rich for your blood, they have a slightly pared down version with the XT View Matrix. So this one still has this mesh panel at the bottom, and here it is exterior, so we can get kind of a feel to it. This has a sort of a metal mesh on the outside and then fabric behind it. So that lets the LEDs shine through, which gives it a nice look. And again, this one here is external, whereas on the X2 Matrix over here, it sits behind the tempered glass. But your 600 LED matrix is still going to be programmable with the Nextlink software. They have a demo of it. Not going to do too much of a demo on this one, but basically you can see here they have a different layouts. So there's sort of different size panels here, and then in each of those you can drop different effects, or you can just use the entire piece. So that's how you're going to be able to customize what's being displayed on the LED panels. Other than that, the XT View Matrix has 2 tempered glass side panels, so you get that full wraparound view of the components inside. And we're still maintaining plenty of dust filtration with the magnetic filters that pull off on top. And of course, you still got your USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port. Last thing to mention about the XT View Matrix is that you guys might be aware that the XT View is already a case that exists on the market. Phanteks was able to add the Matrix LED display down there at the bottom without compromising any of the other feature sets or support for hardware that the case has. So that's cool. Ooh, we have a completely other area over here, which has some cooling components, such as the Glacier One. This is a 360 millimeter AIO that features M25 fans. So 360 millimeter fans set up over here, but more importantly, the AIO itself has an LCD display on it. It is a 6-inch panel on this display, and it actually has a mount that is a little bit flexible. So you can shift it to the left, you can shift it to the right. I was given a brief demo of this. This is still an engineering sample that we're working with right here, but Phanteks says they're looking at keeping the price of this entire unit somewhere in the range of $170 or $180, which is, if you include the value of the LCD, which you may or may not include as a value. I will not always tell people, definitely get an LCD display inside your computer case. You know, it's an aesthetic touch. Maybe it brings value to you, maybe it does not. But if you're gonna get one, they can get really expensive for the ones that are attached to all-in-one liquid coolers. So this being sub $200 makes it very price competitive versus similar solutions on the market. How about some fans? The Phanteks, if you weren't aware, makes fans. They have a bunch of different fans, and the T30 120 millimeter version is one that they actually came out with quite a few years ago. I think it was like 2020 or so. This fan uses the LCP material for the fan blades as well as the housing. This one was meant to go up against like Noctua's X12, X25, the nice Noctua one that they made. And at the time when this one launched, they were actually already in development of a 140 millimeter version. But if you're familiar with like Noctua's development times, developing a fan is a lot more complicated than you might expect. So although it took them several years, they are now ready with the 140 millimeter version of this fan We have some charts in terms of performance data at different fan speeds. This information is all coming from Phanteks, so it should be taken with a grain of salt. We generally trust our manufacturers with the information they provide us, but we like to verify it as well. But compared to mysterious other brands like brand N and brand C, they say that the T30 140mm is clearly better because you can see that bar, it goes up higher there. Anyway, they're talking about airspeed through the radiator. These fans are optimized for radiator usage, so they're going to have really good static pressure. That doesn't mean they can't necessarily be used for airflow as well, so obviously you should buy a bunch of them if you want all the fans in your case to match. But if you want the best solution that Phanteks has put together in terms of a 140mm fan, that's going to be the T30, and you know it's all about performance because there's no RGB lighting on it. Obviously, the RGB would probably make it work even better, but maybe that'll be next year. Nice little feature, nice little added touch to these fans since they manufacture these LCP fan blades. There's variance in manufacturing, so in order to make sure that all of these fans are perfectly balanced as they spin on their Sunon 3-phase motor over here, every single fan that's produced goes through a QC procedure where they go in, and I don't know if you can see, but there's little pockets in here, and some of them have material added to them. So that is to balance each fan blade and make sure it's perfectly balanced. So that's going to make sure that you get maximum performance out of it. It's also going to make sure it minimizes the amount of noise that's generated because an unbalanced fan is going to be a noisy fan. Over here we have the X30. This is a 360mm triple 120. This is a 420mm triple 140 down on the bottom. These are single unit triple fan solutions. It's not necessarily the first time we've seen 3 fans in a single housing, but it is a very useful way to give yourself an easy installation for a 360mm radiator, for one, but also, because these fans are all connected together, they were able to make some unique aesthetic touches, like this RGB ring that goes around the outside. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but the housing here is actually slightly thinner than your typical 25mm fan, but that allows the LEDs on the side to be a bit proud. They're sticking out a little bit if you can't tell. So that means if you're viewing it from the side, you're still going to get a nice edge view of that LED. Again, nice little aesthetic touch. You should expect these X30 triple fan solutions to be available in Q3, like many of the products we've looked at today. And yes, they will be available with reverse fan blades as well. Oh yeah, and a nice touch down here is that for the cable that comes out of the end, which is going to be a single cable that can handle both the fan speeds and the RGB, but they provided some channeling here, so you can feed that straight out the back or to either side to help maximize, to help clean up your cable management. That's what I was trying to say. Oh, and one last thing to note, if you wanted to install this, say, on the front of your case as an intake, since these are sitting back a little bit more, they're going to provide spacers as well, so you can still have standard fan mounting, like that. Like that, see? Okay. Finally, we have the Glacier Easy Fits, which is the Phanteks lineup of custom water cooling components. They've expanded this with some additional radiators here going all the way up to 420mm. Also some girthier radiators, 45mm thick right here, 30mm thick over here. You can see they're expanding their lineup of distro plates. They actually have a couple really cool custom builds over there. I'll show you a closer look. But for distro plates, depending on the graphics card and motherboard you're using, there can be some variance where the CPU mount is. So this is a really cool feature for a distro plate that I don't think I've ever seen before, which is you have some adjustments for those feeds, for those tubing connectors, fittings. That's the word I'm looking for. That's just going to allow you to provide a little bit of adjustment there. So if you're trying to do a build like this gorgeous system over here, a distro plate allows you to do some pretty simple 90-degree bends. Then you just cut the tubes to length in order to mount them. But you can kind of see those adjustment points right here, and for the GPU right over here. That's just allowing a much more broader amount of compatibility depending on where your actual motherboard socket is on your motherboard, or depending on the length and width of your GPU. Speaking of lengthy, widthy GPUs, we have a block right here for the 5090 that I think there's at least 2 or 3 people with 5090s at this point. I know, I kid, of course. I have a 5090, but I'm not, no, never mind. I'm getting distracted here. The point being is, for the lucky few people out there who do get their hands on a 5090 and who actually want to go whole hog on it and water cool, they have full replacement blocks here for the 5090. This is the Asus model. This is compatible with the Asus ROG Astral. And this one over here is for MSI's 5090, which also has a name. It's MSI
Vanguard, yeah, it's
Lightning.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's the Lightning, the MSI Lightning, which they haven't used for 10 years, but I think they should bring back. Why bring back the lightning, MSI? Anyway, here's a demo of a full loop setup with these components, and I like the radiators, not radiators, reservoirs that they have over here. I did the same thing. Yeah. Including this little guy, which is a 120 millimeter fan-shaped reservoir with a mount for the pump in there as well. And you can see it on display in this build right at the back. And just look how nice that looks and how cleanly it blends in with this entire build. And I gotta give a big shout out to the Phanteks guys who do the builds here because, man, that looks so nice. The frosted tubing. I'm digging the frosted tubing on that one. And that wraps it up for my coverage here at the Phanteks suite. We're at the Hyatt, Taipei, Taiwan. I would like to say a huge thank you to my sponsors for Computex 2025, Gigabyte, G-Skill, Thermaltake, Cooler Master, and Trix. I have lots more content coming at you guys, so if you aren't subscribed to my channel, definitely do that. You can also check out my playlist if you'd like to see all of my Computex videos. I'll be back with more really soon. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next one.